Navigating the immigration landscape is difficult, it's daunting at best, but you need a helping hand, and that makes the process so much easier. Now, for today's episode of The Conversation, I'll be speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis, the consultation, or the consular queen rather, and we'll look at all the nuances that are associated with the immigration process. Welcome to The Conversation. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
So, I know how we introduced you as the consular queen, but before we get to that though, question number one is, what is your claim to fame? Who are you? Who's Nordia Barrett-Lewis?
Ah, that's sweet. All right. So, if you want to know who is Nordia Barrett-Lewis, I am an educator in the background, yes. And a graduate of Mona School of Business and UTech. So let me just give you a ground zero that I'm Jamaican. I am educated here. And of course, Nordia happens to migrate May 13, 2022. So that's just 2 years and probably about two weeks or probably, no, lies, 2 years and 1 month ago. So that's 25 months ago, right? And having migrated, going through navigating the daunting process, as you would put it, I was the one doing most of it myself, and I was able to pick up some skill sets from it. And this is outside of getting formal training afterwards. Having picked up the skill sets, I decided that I wanted to help a few friends. So I started helping a few friends. Friends refer their friends. And from there, the Consular Queen sort of developed. And I use the term sort of because the Consular Queen never officially developed until October 2022. So I played around with the job a little bit, and then it became formal October 2022.
All right, so help me to understand the timeline. You said that May 2022, that's when you left.
Yes.
And by October, you had the Consular Queen.
Registered. Formal business, yes.
So May, October, that's a few months, that's 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably a little bit more. And yeah, it's about that.
But before we get into that though, you said that you are an educator. What does that mean? You were formally trained as a teacher?
Yes. I was formally trained as a teacher at University of Technology, Jamaica. Yeah. Okay,
and so why did you leave though? Why the move?
Love those things. And I'll leave it right there. Love those things, right? So, of course, the attachment of the L, Lewis. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the Lewis caused you to move, and but one thing that just came to mind though, that was in the middle of COVID, because COVID would have been March 2020 onward, and you're talking about May 2022. That would have been the heights of COVID. How were you able to navigate during that process? Because we understand that you weren't able to get interviews so readily. There were no face-to-face, if my memory serves me right. And so he couldn't travel, you couldn't travel. So I'm assuming that's a whole heap of Zoom.
All right, so it's interesting, but during the COVID period, I was not well. And that September 2020 to December 2021, I did 4 major surgeries, right? So I wasn't well. Migration was not at the forefront, even though it was in the pipeline. It was in the process. That was the last thing right now. My main focus was just to get well. That was it. Once I recognized, like, January 2022, February, I'm good, then this is when I'm like, no, I'm ready to go now. Yeah, this is it. I'm ready to go now. I'm well. You know what I mean?
That's when the L started bubbling over.
Yes, sir. It was bubbling like a good pot of soup.
All right.
Yeah. So, so that's when I really started to do something now, because I needed to go, and I needed to go now. And my thought process was that I didn't want to switch job and have any job paying to onboard me because onboarding done properly is expensive. So I didn't want to take any workplace through that. So I decided I needed to expedite my process out.
So help us to understand, when you said that onboarding done properly, so you didn't want any company to have the burden of onboarding you. What exactly do you mean when you say that?
Right, so I didn't want to switch to a new job in Jamaica and then they'll have to train me. By the time they're finished training and the normal process takes place, it would have more than likely been months. And I thought that was a bit on the unfair side, so I never chose that. So what I did, I chose to expedite my case. And between the approval of the expedite and moving to the United States was 21 days. So I can tell you that's the genesis of me in this job.
So I'm trying to piece everything together because you said January 2022. That's when you started feeling better and you wanted to be with your partner. And so one, you didn't want to go and get another job here where you would have to go through the onboarding process and then having to leave. But what we understand from the immigration process, many of us, based on what we have seen, not necessarily what we have gone through, but you know, you start the filing now and it takes months, if not years. But you are saying that this process took you 21 days.
No, the entire process did not take me 21 days. My decision to go now and doing something about it took 21 days. So it was already in the process.
But you were able to expedite how?
I was able to expedite because I went through the process of illness by myself, alone. And you need a support system if you're going through what I was going through at the time. And remember now, COVID really caused some issues where that was concerned. So the freedom of traveling was not it then.
But you see, the story sounds almost incredible in that, like I stated, so you started COVID, or you started with COVID, you had all of that in your way, and then come 2022, the process would have been in the pipeline, but you decided that you needed to expedite this process.
Man, this is it.
It took 21 days.
21 days.
So you went up in May, and then in September you registered a company.
October I registered.
October.
But when I went up in May, all right, so what happened now? I started to focus on friends, and I'm like, oh, but if friend number one is supposed to visit me, this person is going to need a visa. So I sort out friend number one. If friend number two needs to know that I'm here, so when I called friend number two, she's like, oh, I'm in the process. My mom's husband died. I'm like, I can expedite that. So her process was even faster than mine because her, between the approval of the expedite, getting back passport was like 7 days. So she was a bit in shock, and then I used her as the foundation. So people ask me, can you do this? I'm like, don't listen to me, talk to that girl. So by the time they talked to her, it became easy to pay me to get what they need to get done.
Oh, so you started with the referral now. So, because, you know, what I'm trying to understand is whether or not you went with this business in mind, with the idea
Absolutely not.
You know.
No idea.
So all this is as a result of the crucibles that you would have gone through.
Right.
Sickness, application, expedition, and all of those.
And I was also in the search. So in trying to get the expedite done, I was in the search of an attorney to do it. And I found this attorney, Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. And we spoke on the phone for like 54 minutes. And, you know, we had little doubts. She had little doubts. I'm like, I'm going to try this. If it works, I'll share it with you because I know there are folks out there that are in the same kind of situation and need the much needed help that I have gotten. So when it was done and I'm like, here's my blueprint, she's like, no, girl, hold on to that. That's your blueprint. That's money. That's money.
So, all right. So it gives the impression then that you did this, and as soon as you got through with your process,
I started to help other people.
You saw the need to pay it forward.
Yeah, started helping others.
And so that's how Consular Queen
came into
being. So, all right. So in the segments to come, though, what we want to get an idea now is you're moving from all right, helping your friends, helping your family, and then you're moving into a limited liability company now. What would that have been like? Because you're in a new space. You're somewhere else, totally different. It's not like Jamaica.
All right, so I want you to first of all know that I went through a mental phase. I'm an entrepreneur by nature. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur by nature, right? So I've run many businesses. None has ever been sunken, right? I have parted ways because I'm going to study or for different reasons, right? So now but I was in a job while I'm doing all of those. So I had what you call job security. When I started to do this now, I went through a mental phase of trying to decipher now, I am going to be paying me. And I'm going to be relying on me to ensure I get paid. That was a bit painful. Initially.
So, hold on, let me put a pause on that segment because I definitely want to hear that that aspect of the story. But we're going to our first break. You're watching The Conversation, where I'm speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis, immigration consultant. Continue to stay with us. Welcome back to The Conversation. We're speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis, the Consular Queen. So just before we went to the break, you were telling us about your experience. So continue telling us about that.
Okay. So I think I was telling you about that mental state that I went in, having gone to doing my own business, and now I have to pay me. That was super challenging for me. It took me some time to really get to the realization that it's something that is possible. And at this point, I am still working for me, but it never crosses my mind whether it is I'd be able to go to the store on the weekend, next month, next 2 months. It doesn't cross my mind anymore.
But as an entrepreneur, one would have made the assumption already that you would have been working to pay you. It's just that you no longer have that sense of job security.
Right. So the job security meant something for me then, right? And that is why if corporate America had really caught on to me, this probably would not be it.
So you're saying that if you had gotten a job,
right,
this would have been the end of it? Would have not seen the Consular Queen?
Because I got a number of calls, and every time I got a call from Dionnie, it's always like, so Queen, you get a job yet? And I'm like, no, because I don't know you're searching for the people's job, and you have a job already. So
we can make the assumption then that she saw the importance or the impact, the possible impact of what you could be before you actually saw it.
Oh, definitely.
So,
because in fact, what I'm doing now, I had zero idea. If it was, I don't know if she had the extent of the idea or the extent of what would have happened, but I definitely did not fathom what's happening now.
So, all right, so now that we have moved from you almost having that mental breakdown, and you having to now make a shift in your understanding, your mental model. Tell us a little bit now about Consular Queen LLC. It started in October of 2022. It was just a few months after you have entered the US. The first few months would have been daunting, but fast forward now, what is that like? What exactly is it?
I'm going to say it's nothing short of amazing, and so much so that I believe it's my real duty to pay it back and give it back. I need to give back, hence part of the reason I'm doing Level Up Jamaica, because it's necessary. I found a thing, it's working for me, and I know I am not the only person that can benefit from this. So I'm giving back now.
All right. So we understand now that because you're now fully into immigration, and we should state for the record that when you just started, you didn't have a background in either immigration nor immigration law.
Nothing.
All right.
As a blank slate.
A blank slate. So,
I'm a
but
blank
now
slate.
that is changing because with the experiences that you have garnered,
Right.
and now you are looking to get yourself accredited as far as
Right.
immigration law is concerned.
Right.
All right. So what's that like though? What's that whole process now? Because you're going on the other end of it.
You know what? The transition is pretty easy, and I'm going to give that easy part to my coach, because had I tried to do this by myself, I would not have been navigating that smoothly. So I kind of believe the background of the difficult part, she takes care of it. She, strains the stuff, all the sediments out of it, and then take that platter forward. So now it becomes more palatable and easier to work with. So absolutely, this transition is pretty easy.
So now what I want to understand is the process now, because we understand that you, because of what you have gone through, you would have seen the benefit, and the fact that you are now in business, that particular kind of business, it means that the process is repeatable.
Yes.
So the results are also repeatable. So what are some of the challenges, though, that Caribbean nationals would face, or people generally would face, when navigating the immigration process to countries like the US, where you are, or Canada, just North America in general?
All right. So first of all, I want to address repeatable. When you look at immigration, and I will not speak to other countries because I'm only familiar with the United States, right? Immigration is like a fingerprint. Every single case is unique. So you're not exactly replicating the same thing you did last week for that couple, for the next couple coming forward now. So it's not the same. So it takes a lot of strategic thinking, strategic management, strategic movements, because you have to, it's basically like a rubric. Every person that comes in front of you is a rubric. And you're not going to make the same turns in order to pull that rubric together. So that's the first thing I'd want to address, that it's not necessarily repeatable. It's not a repeatable one.
Because, well, I'm just looking at it from the perspective that, you're now going into business because you have understood the process, and so there are aspects of the process that you can definitely repeat so that you can get the same results for someone else.
Right.
So that, but in terms of typical timeline, you stated your process took you from when you decided to do the expedite to the end. It took you all of 21 days. But typically, for someone else out there, what would be the steps involved? And in terms of the typical timeline for somebody to obtain, say, a permanent residency or a green card or something to that effect, and what are some of the strategies?
All right, so you remember when I said to you that the steps are not exactly repeatable?
Yeah.
And all cases are unique. So let's pull a case together, right? So a U.S. citizen may be filing for a minor. That's a child below the age of 21. You can look at that case closing in under 2 years, done properly. If it's not done properly, you might meet someone that has that exact case going from 2018 and it's now 2024, because they don't know what they're doing, so they're not able to navigate the difficulties, and sometimes the system gets blamed for their inability to understand the process and to do the things the way they are supposed to be done so that the process can be completed.
Oh, so there is a legitimate process, and ordinarily, if it's done properly, it takes under or at most 2 years.
Right, for that case example, yes.
All right, but are there any other strategies, or are there any strategies that we can employ to ensure that we're doing this thing properly?
Absolutely, and the easiest strategy you can employ is to call 470-593-8448. You get in touch with the Consular Queen. And don't worry about the strategy. I'll do the strategizing for you.
So you'll do that. So last thing now, before we go to that break, is the process different for Caribbean nationals when compared to persons from other regions of the world who want to get into the U.S.?
I don't believe so, based on what we're seeing, because one unique thing about the United States is that it has an indiscriminate process. You know how another country will tell you that if you get to a particular age as a minor, as a child, then your parent cannot petition for you? That's not the case in the United States. So if we're going to look at different countries, it's the same process. You're just repeating that thing across different countries.
Ah, all right. So, wow. So you're saying that the process is indiscriminate, and is it unique though to the U.S. Or as far as you can tell?
I don't want to say unique to the U.S., given that I don't know the process for most other places, except that I know that immigration is not as friendly. The things that can happen, because for you, you are able to possibly self-petition. Forget about a brother or sister that you have.
Yeah.
That may take a long time to petition for you. You may be able to petition for yourself because you hold a master's degree, you hold a first degree, you hold some experience, you name it, right? That's not necessarily the thing in another space, in another migrating to another country.
Oh, okay. All right, with that said, we go to our second break. You are watching The Conversation, where I'm speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis, the Consular Queen, on immigration matters and then some. Continue to stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation. I was just now speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis, but we're now joined by her friend, her attorney, her coach. She wears a lot of hats. We're talking about her partner in the Consular Queen LLC. This is no other than Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. All right, welcome to The Conversation. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
So just before the break, I would have been catching up with Nordia in terms of what the process was like, and just generally how do we navigate the nuances that are associated with immigration. And you happen now to be an immigration attorney. How different would it be for someone navigating that space who didn't have access to your expertise? Say, I'm doing that all by myself. How much different would it be, or difficult rather, because it's already difficult with an attorney, but how much more difficult would it be without one?
I think difficult times 10, and thank you for having me, and congrats to Nordia on all her accomplishments. Let me put it this way, Kwame. I have been doing this for 19 years, and the thing with U.S. immigration laws, it's constantly changing. So even for an attorney like myself that is exposed on a daily basis, it is difficult. So can you imagine someone, whether they're from the Caribbean, whether they're from the continent of Africa, Latin, South America, coming to a system for the very first time? Our laws, U.S. immigration laws, are archaic in that they've been written for decades. Of course, they're interpreted differently, but to ask a lay person to interpret that is an absolute nightmare. So to answer your question, it is extremely difficult with or without an attorney or a consultant like Nordia. But certainly having an attorney or a consultant in your corner, it definitely helps.
Oh, so now I'm of the opinion definitely that it was because of the difficulties that were associated with the whole process. And that's why you're here now, because had it been easier, then there would not have been a need for consultants or immigration attorney. So the question now is, what roles can immigration consultants like yourselves know can you play in supporting Caribbean people, Caribbean nationals, and then some through the whole process, and how and the complexities that are associated with it?
All right, I think consultants play a huge role. So let's start with a conversation about who can represent who, because that's the big debate when it comes down to U.S. immigration law. Should I have an attorney or should I have a consultant? I am of the mindset that you get to choose. It's almost like we're democratizing a system, and it becomes a question of access to justice, right? So if you think about my mother when she migrated, the Shira of my story, when she migrated to the United States, she had to go through lots of steps to even understand that she needs an attorney. Most people from the Caribbean, Black and brown countries, they don't understand the concept of I need a lawyer for immigration purposes. So most people think, if I kill somebody, let me go get a lawyer. But for a process where we have illegitimized the person, we call an individual illegal, right? So just their physical being in the United States, they're illegals. A lot of people, they don't comprehend that. For all they know is that they've entered a country and they just want something that's better for them and their children. So they don't even understand the concept of, let me get a lawyer, and let me use a Jamaican word, to sort out myself. They don't get that, right? So having myself in the system as an attorney, I realized how unfair the system is and that not many people will understand they need a Dionnie, they need a lawyer. What they do understand is, wait, I know Nordia from around the corner, you know. And she said something about immigration. Let me call up Nordia. Nordia is that trained consultant. They understand clearly they need a Nordia because they have some questions about immigration. I cannot tell you how many people, especially my people, Caribbean, black and brown countries, don't understand my role as an immigration lawyer because in their minds, they've done nothing wrong. Why would they need a lawyer? In their minds, they need a Nordia because they have some questions. So the consultant becomes that bridge. The consultant becomes that direction into, let me sort myself out because clearly they need a consultant.
So what you're saying then is a natural synergy where, you know, once you went through the issues that you went through, then it's only natural for you to have formed that partnership or synergy. So what was that like for you though? So here you would have been walking, I'm making the assumptions now that you'd have been walking Nordia through some of the processes, helping her to navigate that landscape. But then when she's done now, she would have seen a process, she would have seen some things that are repeatable, and so she would have decided, hey, let me try and put this to practice, and let me form something out of it. What was that like for you, and how, in your experience now, what are some of those unique considerations for requirements, say for someone who's not from the Caribbean, who's trying to get into the U.S.?
So to be honest, it was a headache. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Initially, so I like to say what I do is where my love of the law and my love of education meets. From very earlier on, education took me out of poverty. So I know that if I can educate everyone around me, right, it's not like running a race where only certain people have the skills. Education is like that playing field. It levels the playing field for many people, myself, for many, many individuals. So when I met the Nordia of the world and she's like, I'm looking for a job, I'm like, you have some amazing skill sets. Let's play with that. Let's see where that can take us. So I knew very earlier on that once I gave her the tools, and the tools I have in my toolkit, I've been doing this year will be 19 years that I've been an attorney, so I already have the tools, right? And there are many books that talk about when you go somewhere and you learn something, it's your job to come back and share it with the world. So that's exactly what I've done. I went somewhere, I learned a couple of things, and I decided, I'm just going to share it and shout it from the mountaintop with the Nordias and all the individuals that want to become a consultant.
Oh, so both of you know have that mindset, the paid-forward mindset.
Absolutely.
All right. So, but are there any advice that you would give to Caribbean nationals who are separated from their spouse or their family members due to immigration issues? What options do they have in terms of because I'm almost sure that I've heard your name come up in terms of reuniting families and all that. So I'll start with you first. You know, what kind of advice you would have, and then I go to the lawyer.
All right. So, and having my attorney sitting here, I'm going to answer the way she should have taught me to answer, right? So we don't do advice without consultation. So we kind of need to understand the unique case that we're looking at. And from understanding the case, then this is when, again, we strategize in order to solve that issue that the person is having. That is, if they're having an issue, because sometimes they're not. And I'll say sometimes because someone will call you to say that the processing center is taking a long time with their case. They have not heard about it since they put it in. When did they put that case in? 6 months ago. But typically, it takes approximately a year for it to come out. So really and truly, they don't have a problem in that sense, but it's the reassurance that I would bring to them to give them an idea, what can you look for in the future? When can you look for that? So it depends. We first need to understand situations in order to guide from there.
All right. What options do they have though to try and just to try and reunite, to be reunited with the families?
So outside of the obvious, doing it yourself, right? Because that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
I cannot talk about my immigration journey without talking about my mom, because I was separated from my mother. My mom left Jamaica when I was 13. And so when I saw her again, I was like almost 20. So I understand family separation. And so for me, if you want to be reunited with your family members, you got to get professional help. This is not a do-it-yourself approach. This is get professional help. This is not me listen to my auntie, my sister, my uncle, because everybody did it themselves and they got through with it. It's a case of seek professional help. And I'm not here on a platform to sell my services, do extremely well for myself. So I want Jamaicans, Caribbean, especially Black and brown folks, you cannot go to the website, the immigration website, read the law and figure it out yourself. Just like if you get shot and it's like you saying, you know what, I got shot. I'm just gonna dig out the bullet with a knife and pray it works. That is what you would, no, for real, Kwame, like you cannot do that. So my advice would be, gone are the days when you try to figure it out yourself. Gone are the days when you're gonna walk to the border or fly to Mexico and walk across the border, because that's in for Jamaica. So gone are those days. We have highly qualified individuals that have not taken advantage of U.S. immigration laws, because all we care about is a B1, B2. We're going to get a white dress and we're going to pray the rest of the way, or we're going to get a tuxedo. I think we have to change the narrative. We have highly qualified individuals. The United States has an extremely amazing pathway for professionals. Our Black and brown folks are not doing that. In fact, if I have a conversation, and you can tell me to stop because I can talk immigration all day, we have so many pathways that are available. So I'll cut it short by saying, seek help, seek professional help, seek professional help.
So I'm going to hold you on that one, and then we go to our final break. You are watching the conversation where I'm speaking with immigration consultants both, Nordia Barrett-Lewis and Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. Continue to watch us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the conversation. Just before we went to the break, something popped up in my head. The idea was, so we know that we would have spoken earlier about a child or a minor being filed for, but what we didn't look a little bit more at was, especially with your situation, your partner is in the US, you're in Jamaica. What typically is the length of that process? And that's the question that I'm going to ask you, and how you can fix it. And then what I'm going to ask you now is, what are some of the common mistakes? So I'll start with what's that process like? How long would it take, or why must it take as long as it does? So tell me about it.
Okay, so typically the spouse being married to a U.S. citizen takes the same amount of time that it takes for a minor.
That's 2 years,
filed
maximum
for.
2 years.
At max 2 years done properly. Remember that clause, done properly.
Emphasis is on done properly.
Done properly.
All right.
Because if it's not done properly, you may find yourself going into many, many years, and you're wondering why it's not finishing, because somebody's trying to fix something, wait, fix again, wait, and then the next thing you know, you're gone into a lot of years. So we call them immediate relatives. That's spouse of a U.S. citizen, a minor of a U.S. citizen, and that minor can be adopted or biological. A parent of a U.S. citizen, same thing, same kind of time frame.
So I'm single, and I decide that I'm going to get married, but my partner, Jamaican, living in the U.S., citizen, What's the best road to take? Do I go up and then we're starting out up there, or if I'm here, I'm comfortable in terms of my employment and whatnot. Do I get married and I stay here while she files for it? What's the best way to navigate that process, and what would be the costs involved in something
All right,
like that?
so the first thing I want to say to you is that we need to sit down and kind of look at what matters to you, because I noticed that you mentioned about being in your job here. And if you're going to be in your job here, then I would say we do what's called consular processing, meaning at the end of your process, you'd have been doing a medical at Andrews and then your interview at the U.S. Embassy, right? If you decide that the job doesn't mean all that and you're ready to get up and go, assuming you're not yet married, you probably want to go the direction of a fiancé visa that allows you to get married within 90 days of entering the United States, yes. And that 90 days is not for you to decipher or for her to decipher if she's liking you or you're the one. That 90 days is for you to get married and start the processing of your paperwork.
That's a fiancé visa.
That's a fiancé visa.
So we have B1, B2.
Oh, no, let us not.
Wait,
No, let
so
us
we're not going to talk about
let
that.
us not even go into
let's get it-
visas,
let's-
because
okay.
we're talking
All
about
right.
the alphabet soup when we go to the
Okay,
US
all right.
visa,
So,
right?
So yeah, you were telling me fiancé visa. Okay.
Right.
So you have 90 days within which to get married and start that process.
Right.
And then how long does that process take after you have gotten married then?
It can typically take about a year, depending, and everything is depending, because you don't know who is that case officer that is looking at your case. You don't know the caseload that they're working with. So there are factors that can determine how soon your case can be in and out.
And you'd stay there until that process is finished?
Right,
or
because that's
okay.
that's the purpose of it. If you decide now that you want to have your status adjusted, that's something you want to be super careful about, because you don't want to be using a B1, B2 to go to the United States to get married, because that's not what the visa is for. Remember, I just told you K1 is for that purpose. So individuals need to think carefully, and there is a statute of limitation in which if they do go, it's problematic if they operate before a certain time frame versus after a certain time frame. But again, it takes typically the same amount of time as using the consulate.
But you haven't said the cost though. What are some of the costs associated with
All
that?
right, the costs associated with the marriage base, and this is my cost. I cannot tell you Attorney Pfunde's cost, but that's $8,750 US. And that's not inclusive of the fees that are charged by USCIS, the embassies, the medical facility. Right.
Well,
That's exclusively I'm taking your problem on and taking it to the solution.
So you're going close to $1 million. You know.
It sounds like $1 million in Jamaica, but considering that I spend US where I live.
Well, I mean, you'd say a dollar is a dollar, but,
Yeah.
but we're talking about for the viewer out there who might be interested in obtaining to take
Right.
either of those routes.
Right.
So you're looking at minimum 10,000 US, you know, to look at what you're doing. So we're talking about roughly 1.57 million, and then some.
All right, so I love where you're going with this, because this is exactly the reason we're doing Level Up Jamaica. Because now you have no reason, after having these individuals certified, you have no reason to spend 1.5 million, because you'll now have trained individuals here on the ground in Jamaica that is able to give you a similar kind of service for significantly less.
All right, so before I get into the Level Up conference though, I remember asking about what are some of the common mistakes that migrants might make when we're thinking of going to the US. What are some of those common mistakes that either hamper the process or delay or cause some kind of
So the
issue?
most common mistake, especially our community, is listening to each other and misrepresenting information about themselves to the U.S. consulate. That is the biggest the most common mistake that I see in our practice.
So I'm tempted to ask, when you say
Yes.
misrepresent, are you saying that we tell lie on
Yes.
ourselves? Or, okay,
I was trying to make it sound nice.
I know that's where you were going, but you know, when you say
Yes.
it sounds fancy, so I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure that,
It's-
so don't lie on the visa. Go on.
And that's the biggest one, quite frankly, because for the most part, you know, we're gonna migrate, we're gonna work hard. That's what we're known for. So the biggest mistake I see is the lying when we're applying for that B1, B2, which is why which is why we're back here to kind of educate. It's the misrepresentation.
So lying to the extent that what we do is we tell you what we think you want to hear, or we are blatantly misrepresenting the facts,
Yes.
or is it a combination
Yes,
of both?
because Kwame went to UWI and Kwame works at the bank and Kwame went to U.S. Consulate and he got a visa. So you know what? I'm going to put myself that I went to UWI, I work at the bank. So when I go up there, I'm going to tell Kwame's story because I want a visa too. That is the most common mistake. And then we land in the U.S. and the officer will say, oh, you have a vacation from the bank. And we're like, what bank? Because that is somebody else's story. So you call it lie, I'm gonna say they misrepresent, but that's one of the biggest mistakes. And not only that, that mistake follows your immigration journey. Because whatever you say at the beginning, whatever you say here 6 years ago, 15 years ago,
It will be on file.
Oh my God, immigration is like a jealous mistress. We do not forget.
Yep.
So
They will not forget.
All right, so tell me about Level Up Conference. We know that it's gonna be soon. It's gonna be in Jamaica. This is not the first conference that you have had, but is it the first one you're having here in Jamaica?
No, this is the second
The
one
second
for
one in
Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yes, so
All right.
it was March 2023 at the same half moon. So it's a signature venue. So, right, and it's at Half Moon again, and that's July 27th, 2024. And for the viewers that are watching, this event is for attorneys. It's also for travel agents and aspiring document preparers. So there are persons sitting out there and they would love to do what we're doing, or they're doing some of it, they're practicing, and it's not, most people are not practicing correctly. And I can definitively say, I don't believe there are any trained people on the ground here, and that's the reason we have decided, you know what, having gone through and seen so many mistakes, also seeing the cost that they pay, we believe that we can come back and educate these individuals to have it done right while impacting the economy positively.
So based on what we had said off air, we spoke about accreditation. So there's a level 1 accreditation that's associated with attending this particular conference.
Right, so there's a level 1 certification.
What does that entail? What's the cost and all of those?
All right, so the cost of Level Up Jamaica is $1,297. By the way, the certificate
$1,300 US.
$1,300 US.
Okay.
The certification is coming from Wynter Immigration Law Academy, and fortunately enough, we decided that the same place I got my certification from, I want my people to get the same kind of access. Of course, it's going to be at a significantly cheaper rate. And I'm not scared to talk about my $75,000 on here, right? Yeah, so you're going to be getting this at a significantly cheaper rate. You're going to have your ongoing support, because it makes no sense to, we don't want to do it like the typical school. You're certified, we leave you alone. You need some practice going forward. So we're going to do it more like the med school kind of thing, where after you finish med school, there's some clinical that you must do before we send you on your own.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it with this program. So, yeah.
All right, so it's gonna be in July. It's gonna be the 27th of July.
Yes.
It's gonna be at the Half Moon Hotel.
Yes.
The cost is $1,300 US, and this is the first of hopefully a lot more of these conferences.
Right.
And the idea is that you will be given some level of certification at the end of that, and you will have a period within which you can actually, let me use the word, level up. Where you can level up your skills and all of that. All right, so Dionnie, Nordia, I want to thank you both for being on the
you.
conversation. Thank you for the information that you have decided to share with us and the fact that you have seen it fit to, based on your collective experiences, to pay it forward. All right, there you have it, viewers. We just spoke. I just had the pleasure of speaking with Nordia Barrett-Lewis. She's an immigration consultant, and also Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. She's now, well, she's a legal expert in immigration matters.
An attorney.
An attorney.
Esquire.
All right. Sorry, an attorney, Esquire. So we just want to ensure that you have the information. Continue to stay with us on Scene TV, your preferred eye to the Caribbean, until such time. I'm Kwame Thomas, and this has been The Conversation.